All right. Welcome to the show, everybody. How's everybody doing tonight? It's your boy Carlos, and we got with us today Andrew, Mr. Andrew Becker. Miss Patty was here, and then she just kicked herself off the screen. So, like, she goes, I'm gonna just, be off the screen for a little bit here, and then, like, I don't know what button she pressed, but yeah. Well, anyway,
She'll be back.
How you doing tonight? She'll be back.
Doing well.
She got the
well.
link. So, how are you doing tonight, Mr. Becker?
Doing well. Thank you for having me on.
Not a problem. So, I know everybody's like, who are you and what does you do? You're involved in the community, I see, huh? Speaking lightly here.
To be honest with you, Carlos, I think that's a question I sometimes am asking myself. It's been a evolutionary process for me these last couple of years here in the community. I started in the advocacy space in the affordable housing, advocating for our unhoused and services here in Antioch, and moved into the nonprofit space and the affordable housing development space. And so now I just really work to further affordable housing development initiatives here in Antioch, right? And also be a voice for the community. So that's kind of where we're at. Yeah.
Hey, welcome back, Miss Patty. Yeah, so he just introduced himself and what he does, in the community. So you didn't miss much. Dang, you welcome back.
Hopping off for a second there.
Real quick, sure. I'm back. Thank you. Nice to see you all again. And I'm sorry I missed your introduction. But that's I will say, I don't know you very well, but I do know that you come through to city council meetings and you do your research. And you bring it. You inform me. I learn a lot from you. So I look forward to learning more and all the knowledge you have to share about housing, and especially during these times, it's holidays and folks are getting evicted, and it's like, it's crazy. It should be against the law they should get fined for trying to evict families during holidays, during the winter. Like, it's crazy. But yes,
it's definitely tough. Yeah. Housing is community, right? Community is housing, right? And since the beginning of time, communities, when they come together, what's the first objective, right? Shelter, right? And from there you build out. And so very crucial here in our community, and trying times, for the state, for the for the whole country, right? It's an economic problem. It's a societal problem. It's driven by inflation and a lack of services, and so a very robust issue. A wheel with a lot of different cogs, right?
And greed.
And greed, yes, and greed, but that comes in any part of society, in every part of society, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
that's the downfall.
Yeah, but I would love to, talk about housing specifically in Antioch, and of course, affordable housing. What is affordable housing, right? And what does that label mean? And then what is that societal effect in our community? And so, affordable housing is classified as low income housing, right? And so in Antioch, in Contra Costa County, a single individual, a single earner, The area median income is $103,000. And so that means that for individuals in the 30%, the 50%, the 60%, the 80%, all of these different labels, these different classifications in low income, they all fall within those brackets of that 103,000 for a single individual, right? And so what is that reflection here in Antioch, right? Well, as I've mentioned at a previous city council meeting, um, the government looks at communities through what's called census tracts, right? They take a group of people, um, and they put them together in one area, in one jurisdiction, one region, one census, and then they group those together in a community. And so here in Antioch, we have 20 census tracts, and of those 20 census tracts, 17 of them are classified as low income. I apologize. My cat is joining the conversation here.
Hey, kitty.
And so, uh, yeah, she's young, so she enjoys being a part of every conversation.
It's all
You
good.
know, um, so what does that mean, right? We hear these misnomers of low income, and it can, for one person, mean an individual that's in a tent on Second Street, or for another individual, it could mean a person that is a teacher and is renting a house over off of Pruitt Ranch, right? There are different income levels, but when we know that an individual is under 80,000, $70,000 a year for a single person, um, they're going to struggle, and we know that in the housing space because of the housing costs, right? The rents, right? If we just simply do the math, a one bedroom that is going for 1,500 plus utilities is going to come in at $18,000 a year. And for an individual making $30,000 a year, that's over half of their salary, right? Their
Right.
income. So that's Antioch, and that's what we're up against.
Question.
Yeah.
So what's important for people to know is like what's happening, what these housing, like what the structures mean in the language, because like this is new language to me, and this is language that's new to a lot of other people. But then it's like what people should understand is that whatever decisions are being made, it through the county, city of Antioch. So it's important for us to know these specifics, because eventually there, from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, is let's say there's funding for housing or for something, it comes through, and if we don't know where that funding is going, then it slips away. It gets put into the wrong places. And I'll just give an example. Okay, funding Measure X is a big pocket of something, and it's going to nonprofits, separate housing from housing, I'm sure. But if the African American community gets their holistic space, we need that. Like that's funding that will come through and should be created for a space. So for housing, there's funding and decisions getting made for the numbers of affordable housing, I imagine. I imagine there's investors. What does this mean for like people? Because let's say, for instance, we can't just expect housing to be ready and available. We need to be prepared before that to make sure that it is available. In order for it to be available, we need to, I guess, know the numbers and the costs, and I don't know. Andrew, school me on this.
Well, to be honest with you, Patty, you hit the nail on the head, right? Um, why do we create these labels, right? Why do we create these terms, these designations? Well, if we're identifying, if we're creating definitions, right? That's because we're working to create solutions, right? Once we've identified um, what the target communities are in your community that you need to um, revitalize, right? Or that you need to economically um, bring change within, right?
Mhm.
How do you capitalize on those opportunities? Because in this society, everything is centered around what? The dollar, right?
Money.
Money.
Mhm.
And we all know that the people who build the buildings, the people who design the buildings, the people who inspect the buildings, they all do it for what? A profit, right? And
Mhm.
so where's the profit in coming in under market? Well, it's not in the private sector. So here in California, we all hear what? The taxes are so high. It's so incredibly expensive to live in the state of California, and that's true.
Mhm.
But where do those taxpayer dollars go? Well, the state of California creates these departments:
Right.
HCD, Housing and Community Development, um, SGC, Strategic Growth Council,
We have an
right?
equity one now.
An equity one now. And so what we do is we look to these departments and we say, how are you getting the taxpayer dollars and how are they going out? And so one of the programs we'll talk about tonight is called the AHSC, the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities Program. Now, that's one of many programs here in the state of California that provide dollars for a multitude of development opportunities for communities. First and foremost, low income housing development. And to your point, Patty, communities that not only build the shelters, the units, but also communities that build the community spaces, right? The classrooms, the workshop areas, the childcare centers, the healing centers, right?
Mhm.
The local healthcare centers, right? These are all dollars that are brought down through these programs. And so, for instance, AHSC is coming online in the middle of January. And as I'm sure you all remember, I've been pushing for Home Key. I pushed for Home
Yes.
Key, right?
Yes.
Similar to Home Key, AHSC is similar to Home Key. AHSC is coming online for $750 million. And this is its eighth round of funding. To date, this program has spent over $3 billion.
Wow.
Question.
Yes,
When you say this is the eighth round,
the eighth round.
how often does each round
Every year.
Mm.
Every
okay?
year.
And this is for our count. This is for the state.
This is the state provides these dollars,
Mm-hmm.
and local entities apply for them. Cities,
Okay.
counties,
Okay.
um, joint power authorities. So that could be ECCTA, right? Tri Delta Transit, um, AUSD. I mean, really, it's any, and it doesn't even actually have to be government entities. Now, and we'll dive into this specific program a little bit more when I talk about the specific projects, the opportunities for Antioch and what they can look like. But before we do, I want to kind of broadly look at these opportunities. And I want to really emphasize that they're missed opportunities.
Mm.
AHSC is one of many, many funding sources that have been online. You know, for the last 5 years, the state of California has been pouring billions of dollars out to fund local projects. But
Mhm.
like any other source of funding, they require what? An application.
Mhm. And
And
then there's
that's where we fall
deadlines.
short. Deadlines are obviously important, right?
Mhm.
But here's the scary part, Patty. Think of it like this. Imagine your community doesn't have any food, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's no stores around, right? So all of a sudden, you have this need for food, but there's no stores around. So what do you have to do? You have to build a store, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have the funds to build a store, right? So what
Mm-hmm.
do? Well, now imagine somebody comes along and says, "Hey, you don't have a store and your people need food. So we're going to build you a store, okay? And we're going to give you the food, but you have to just put in the application,"
Mm-hmm.
right? That's what
Mm-hmm.
we neglected to do. We have not put in any applications. That's simply it. That's
Mm-hmm.
simply it. We spend hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars on hiring consultants.
Mm-hmm.
Our newest housing element that we just submitted, we spent $850,000 to pay the consultants to draft it, just to write it. We paid a firm out of Los Angeles $850,000 to draft it. And what does it say within those 500 pages that they wrote? That 70% of our community is struggling, that we have huge needs, and we ignore those documents. We pay them the $850,000 to pay for it. We, within those documents that we submit to the state, say this is how we're going to fix those problems. And then we don't fix those problems and we say it's because we don't have enough staff. It's very stark. It's very stark. And meanwhile, what does that mean? That means that those numbers, those statistics, which are people, are stories, are forced out. And quickly, before I talk about this specific opportunity, I'll talk about one of those specific situations. I drive Uber and Lyft in our community. I've given over 7,000 rides
Mm-hmm.
to individuals. That means I've had over 15,000 people in my cars all around the Bay Area,
Hmm.
24 hours a day. I've picked up people at midnight. I've picked up people at noon. I've picked up people on New Year's Eve. I've picked up people on a regular Tuesday. And when I pick up people in my community here in Antioch, I hear the same trends in the conversations. A
Mm-hmm.
young woman that I gave a ride out to Oakland about a month ago, to her job as a front end cashier at a neighborhood grocer in Oakland, told me about how her and her mother had received a 60-day notice. Um, they'd been paying their rent on time at this townhome, this condo that they lived in for 10 years. And the owner, because he just decided it was time for him to move on, wanted to infuse, dollars into his pocket for whatever reason, decided to sell the home, the, which was 2 units, one on each side.
Mm-hmm.
The new owner who bought it decided to kick out one side and raise the rent, and to kick out the other side, the individual that I was giving a ride to, and have his daughter move into this place because it would be a great place for her to start. And what's scary is that when they moved in 10 years ago, their rent was about $1,100, and now they're paying about $1,700. And so that means in the 10 years, if anyone does the math, pulls the public records, which I did, public information, so easily attainable for each and every home that is in our community. Go ahead, Carlos.
Hi.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Thanks
Hey
for
there.
joining us.
No problem, no problem.
If you want to introduce yourself real quick, activist, where are you
Hey,
from?
hey. So, my name is Shelby. My actual name is Shelby. You see my IG handle, which is Virgo. I'm a local hip hop artist and an activist in the Bay Area. I help manage the Twerkulator Party Bus, and we also do
activism as far as Sonoma County all the way down to, I don't know, as far as we can go through LA areas. So
All
we work
right.
anywhere from here to there and everywhere in the Bay and surrounding areas.
Sweet. Thank you for joining us. We're Andrew Becker is dropping knowledge on we're from Antioch, obviously, but we're all from the Bay, and we need to keep connecting and sharing information. And Andrew's giving us a lot of info on housing and missed opportunities. So we want to inform our communities about opportunities for funding and how it works. If you have any insight, feel free to jump in. Um, yeah, so go ahead, Andrew. You're
Yeah,
on.
and it very nice to meet you. Um, let me just kind of, I know I can be a bit long-winded, so let me just
It's
kind of
okay.
wrap up here by saying, when I hear these stories from these individuals, right,
Mm,
it hits me, right, because when you go and you find the information, it adds a piece um, of the puzzle to the picture that is sometimes very scary. And so, for this individual I was talking about, in those 10 years, they paid almost $180,000 in rent. The owner purchased the total building, both sides, just their unit was 180,000 in rent. And then there was the other unit, but he paid for both units $250,000, and he sold it for $650,000. So he made $400,000 plus the 180, plus another 180, 360, 400. That's $760,000 that a guy that lives in Concord makes off of somebody here in Antioch. It just doesn't seem right that now all of a sudden capitalistic greed has turned into displacing individuals because we can sell homes.
that's what I was just gonna say. On top of all of that, you have a displaced person, a
Yeah.
displaced family member was the outcome of that.
Yeah,
So then
who
where's
to
the
be
humanity?
yeah, I mean, who, to be honest with you, um if they had bought that, for $250,000, they would have had it paid off in another 10 years. And also their payments over the last 10 years would have been half of what they're paying. And it's very sad because, you know, um, information is knowledge, and who are these individuals that are capitalizing on this? You know, Mike Barbanica owns a unit on Lemon Tree.
Mm. I was gonna ask because I've been watching the market for a while, just looking at, and I would always wondering Lemon Tree, that's Sycamore area, yeah.
It really is, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Okay,
that's where those housing elements, and let me first step back up for the because I know a lot of people do watch this, so I want to clarify. When I say Mike Barbanica owns a unit on Lemon Tree, I don't know specifically where Mike Barbanica owns a unit, but it is in that Lemon Tree Sycamore area.
let me add to
So
that. We have elected officials in every city. We vote for these folks. Some of these folks are there for the people, some folks are business people. It doesn't matter. But in our city, we have elected officials that are invested in real estate, and that is Mike Barbanica and Lori Ogerchuk. That's no secret. They blue line real estate, and I don't know Lori's, but that is where their investments are. And that's
yeah,
great, but it makes me uncomfortable because I've seen different policies needing to get passed to protect families, and they would abstain, or they wouldn't vote, or they'd vote against for policies for people and renters' rights. So,
So, so quick interruption. This is something that I've seen across the board in multiple places through the activism that I've been partaking in the last 3 or 4 years. I would say that conflicts of interest are the biggest thing when motivating these people in power to go ahead and move that. So basically, what I would suggest is start asking to pull records requests on certain items that you find interest or conflict of about matters and see if you could go ahead and get with the FPPC, which is the Fair Political Practice Commission, and some of these other organizations that will actually hold these people accountable. And actually, and even if they don't find, say, something that's solidified, they might get fines, they might get, a reprimand that'll be public knowledge, and at least you can start building a trail of these things on them, because that's not happening. This is
Mhm.
something that was in Sonoma County, in Solano County, Contra Costa County, and across the board. You start noticing, hey, we need a group of individuals pulling records requests and saying, hey, why did you vote on this when you were a part of this over here, and this is a conflict for you to even be a part of? You need to revote. There's other things like, that council members are not allowed to not be present, two things, and they leave, like, say they have votes they're supposed to vote on and they're on vacation or they're doing things that whatever, and say they're remotely accessing that, that if they vote on something and they haven't properly displayed where they're voting, like what they're doing there in a public space, they are actually considered out of the Brown Act, in a violation. So that goes against them. So we need to start racking up Brown Act violations. We need to start looking at, getting the right records requested on these people and see where their conflicts of interest are. That's going to require
Mm-hmm.
either someone designated to do that, or it's going to require a team of people to be designated to start hitting these people and applying pressure. That's what I would say.
Mm.
Nice.
I completely agree. And I'll say for me, there's conflict of issues, and then there's also also moral conflict of issues, right?
We
And
can't bring
so
morality into it though when you're talking about the law. The law doesn't understand morality in a sense. It
no,
understands the
no,
black and white of it.
right, no, I completely understand. I completely understand, and that's what I was gonna say, is that's the situation here, right? And I'll give you a very good example. You take somebody like Council Member Barbanica. Um, Council Member Barbanica owns multiple properties, right?
Mhm.
And rents them out, right? And so he draws a profit on those properties. So he recused himself from some of those previous actions that came forward, resolutions that were passed, right?
Mhm.
So he legally removes any conflict of interest, right? Now,
Not necessarily. So the thing is he might not vote on something, but is he talking about the policies outside of the group of people when they're meeting at this, or are they having private conversations? So do you know that government officials, you can ask for their cell phone records, text
Yeah, I think.
messages?
yes.
So
Yeah.
if you have, because they're government officials, right? And they are communicating and say they're talking about policies amongst themselves, like say they have a casual dinner out in public. They are not supposed to be actually corresponding about work related things. So you can be as nitpicky as you want to be and be like, yo, what was the communications before this vote between council member blah 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 blah, this council member, this council member, this council member? How have they been communicating amongst themselves? And most of them don't understand that we don't ask for public records, right? So they think that they can talk freely. So they do. But I've witnessed it where they start talking in code. They start changing up their mannerisms about how they communicate. They pick up the phone and make a phone call and have verbal communications and stop texting. They stop sending emails. They stop doing certain things because they know they can't communicate that way.
That's okay. Hey, I was just gonna say that people are pretty savvy about that stuff now, especially with the text messages that came out from the police department. Like communications happen, and like let's just say for example, like all of the all of the barbecues and the kick-its of the podcasts of the WTF, the misinformation spreader of the city of Antioch, they would all kick it with the police officers, the former police, and they'd all do, and then they all, and I'm sure in these gatherings they make their plans, and that's what they do. So we can ask for requests all day long, but at the end of the day, they still communicate
No,
and
but ask for old shit. The things that were prior that they got away with because you can lead a trail from behind to come forward to present. They can't erase because no one's ever asked for it. No one's asking for this shit.
Now,
They're not.
Andrew, though, he had mentioned earlier about the records request. If there's anybody that knows about records requests, also, Andrew, you've
I'll,
done.
I'll tell you, in the past 3 years, I've probably received about 3 or 4,000 pages of records requests from the city of Antioch.
That's
So yeah,
tight. Listen, that's
yeah,
super tight. My ex, she got over $1.5 million worth of records requests pulled from the county of Sonoma, county of Solano, and has been labeled a fucking terrorist because she's asking the government officials to go ahead and keep giving these records. I'm talking, we're talking about 300,000 different documents being
yeah,
pulled from one person who is publishing in a space that's insane. She's working with RFK. She's got a bunch of different shit going on. She does have some shit cracking in the activist world that's going crazy. But the public records request, I'm telling you, that's a good number. That's a great number. But we need people doing this every single day,
yeah.
micromanaging every one of these people. Like I could ask for a records request for Antioch and be like, yo, what was the interaction between the police for the investigation of this, this, and this? I can ask for, how the mayor is spending his budget for this, this, and that, and the third. My point is, anything we're asking for, the more people doing it, the more people we teach how to do it, the more people getting involved and being aware. It's great that you're pulling that. It's great that she's doing what the work she's doing, but it's not enough to have one person pulling all these records. What we really need to do is start getting more people because they don't want those records out there. And sharing the
Yeah.
records, making them public as hell. Like, yo, here, let me give this to you. Read it. Maybe you might see something I missed. Whatever,
Well, but let me respond to that though, because I completely agree with you. I think that information, right? I think we all agree that information, especially public information, is just that, right? It's public, and it's for the community to know. And I wholeheartedly support that. But you know, here in Antioch, we also do have a very serious capacity issue, right? And so you also have to understand that it's a seesaw you're on. It really is. And so if you pull all of the weight in one direction, what's going to hold up the other end? You have to say to yourself, if we as a community, and I want to really emphasize this, is if we have a community, and to your point, bombard these departments with these public information acts, and now we've got all of this information, we've compiled all of this information, and we have a true understanding, I should say a truer understanding. That I think is great, right? But I think for us here in Antioch, that have been so engaged in this and have seen just, and I'm going to use strong words here, but this downward spiral, right? Um, it's bigger, right? Because we have enough information to know now that we need action. That's where we're at. So when I pull these public records requests, I'm looking for just enough information to find a path forward, because that's really what the purpose of that Freedom of Information Act is
right to
to
find a solution, to
correct,
be solution based.
yes, to correct the misinformation, right? And then to find a resolution, the best resolution. And so that's here in Antioch, coming back to really quickly housing and Barbanica and a conflict of interest and a moral conflict of interest. For me, the larger issue is, you look at that Sycamore corridor, right? Those are all 2-bedroom, 1-bathroom, 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom, maybe 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartments. That's what they all are. They're either 4-plexes or 8-plexes. They were all built in the 70s, 80s, right? And right now there's about 15 or 20 of them on the market for 200 to 250,000. Right now, one guy is selling 10 of them for 2.2 million bundled. He owns all 10 of them. Think of that. One guy owns all 10 of them. I spoke to a real estate broker who owns a large brokerage here in the region, who also owns one of these units. And About 10 years ago, these units were what were referred to as cash cows. Okay. You purchase them cheap, people would move into them for about 5 months to justify their mortgage, and then they hop out and they up the rent and they get a profit, and that's their first in. That's their first. That's their first owner renter occupied units. And now what's happening is, to justify getting in $250,000, you have to charge a rent of about $2,300, $2,200. So some people have Section 8 vouchers that they're shopping around, and other people are just charging those rents. For everybody living on Sycamore, they cannot afford $1,800 to $2,300 on those apartments. They're 2-bedroom, 1-bathrooms, and our housing element says the majority of those people are single parents. So when I say it's a moral conflict of interest, how can a city council member that supposedly read our housing element, that specifically labeled that area and the injustices, the disparities there, own a unit and charge those kinds of rents, knowing the person that's renting it probably can't afford it? And so, that's what we're up against here in Antioch. Those are the rents and that's the situation for me. I mean, there's a lot of issues, right? But for me, housing is really where it's centered around, because without proper shelter, without housing, every community, every family, every individual is not going to succeed, or will not easily succeed. So, if anyone wants to quickly respond, but I definitely want to tell you guys really quickly about these opportunities in Antioch, specifically, and what they might look like.
I'm gonna say I agree, Andrew, that like home is where the heart is, and like shelter at the minimum. At some point, it should not be a profit. It should be for people. So I agree, 100%. Tell us about
Thank you.
the
Yeah.
program.
So the city of Antioch created this overlay, what's called the IH overlay, Innovative Housing Overlay. And what an overlay is properties have zones, right? And within the zoning designation that property has, that's what you're allowed to build there, right? So for residentially zoned communities, you can build residential. And within that residential zoning, you have densities. So whether you can build single family homes, or you can build large, tall apartment buildings, right? Those are what those densities speak to. Well, in Antioch, we have a lot of churches, a lot of faith owned properties that have excess property. So the state of California created SB4, which allows for housing development on church properties. But the kind of housing development they speak to is like large apartment buildings, right? And so there's actually one church here in Antioch that is going to do just that, which is Grace Bible over off of Oakley Road. They want to build a 4-story, 80-unit apartment building. It will be all affordable housing, all low-income housing, and it will also have on the ground floor community space.
Yeah, I don't know if
It's
I like that. I don't know if I like that idea of having churches do that, being faith based, and I'm a faith based person. But the reality is that I don't know if you remember them drinking that Kool-Aid. Like you could initially try to move people in a direction and sway them into these faith-based communities based off of the fact that they're receiving housing. And when you talk about morality, that's a interesting thing to kind of gamble and look at that scale, right? Like these churches, like I'm assuming that's where they're going to be drawing some of their people and some of the people that are coming into those faith-based places where you're Lutheran, Catholic, Presbyterian, Mormon, whatever. I could persuade you to believe what I want based off of the fact that I'm supplying you with something that you need.
I wonder if it's going to be religious based though, because I mean, would it be if? But also, if there's anybody to help, I appreciate that it is the churches that are like, okay, look, we have this plot of land. This is what we're
Not
going to
all
use it.
churches are created equal, though, is all I'm saying. So you got to
Mm.
understand, not all churches are created equal. Like I said, that man who had them people drink the Kool-Aid, he was a church-based, faith-based person, and they were out there following him and being led by him and so on and so forth. I don't mind that, but I feel like you shouldn't be creating businesses within the church to create more revenue for you if you're really about the people. Build the
What'll that look
homes.
like? What'll that look like, Andrew? For like
Yeah.
faith-based.
So and so that's I think there's a lot of important points there. Um, and a lot of important points, and for a lot of people those are the concerns, right? Housing should not be tied to evangelical restrictions. It shouldn't be tied to any restrictions. Here in
No.
California we have what's called housing first laws, which require individuals to house, and so those are laws. First off, we have fair housing laws, right? So we cannot discriminate based on recognized for recognized reasons, right? And but those are broad housing laws, right? In the state of California, we have what's called housing first law initiatives, and so what that means is that when you have low income communities, for instance, like the one that wants to be that is intended to be built on Grace Bible, um, they are typically tied to these affordable housing dollars, like I talked about, AHSC or other funds.
So
If
that
you
so real
use,
quick. So that's something that's concerning because the biggest thing about a church is what? They are tax exempt from doing a lot of certain things that are going on. So then you have to follow the money to see who these people are who are building, right? You're talking about the developers, you're talking about the investors, and these people, are they exempting themselves out and just making more slum based situations for people to live in while being tax exempt and making their pockets fatter? These churches are ways for people to throw money into these nonprofits that are exempt from paying taxes. There
yeah,
has to be a reason they're allowing it if it doesn't benefit them in any kind of
uh,
way. Like
but
if I can
but
charge you
there is a
20,
reason.
I'm saying if I could charge you $2,800 down the street, right? And I have to pay taxes on that, or I could charge you 2,200 and pay no taxes on the 2,200. Yeah, I'm gonna vote to build this up because I'm invested in it and I'm still making that money. Now I'm just making it in a bigger way. It's like compounding the problem in a way to do that. It's very dangerous to walk down the line of dealing with faith-based things because you don't know what their alignments are. Just because they say they're faith-based doesn't mean anything in the long run. Their actions of what they're doing. You've never had churches building affordable housing on them until they found this as an avenue for them to make money.
That okay, that's those are all fair points, okay, but I want to respond, and I want to say that the pastors that I'm working with here in Antioch, California, um do not have those thoughts, and those are very valid points. Those are fair points, and I'm sure that that is happening in society. When trees grow, some apples rot, okay, but that does not mean that that rotten apple embodies every apple on that tree. And so I want to highlight tonight the other apples, because that is the fruit, that is the opportunity that we're missing. And I want to also emphasize the pastor that I'm working with on this property is a non-paid pastor. He owns businesses himself. He makes his money. What he does for his church and for his people is for his people. The reason why this church wants to build on this property is because their Lord has brought a carpenter to their site and has said, here is where you will build a shelter that will house the people in your community that need help. And so, yes, that there is money, because that's the capitalistic world that we live in. And even churches that are non-exempt still have bills that they do have to pay.
I'm asking how they're
But
funding it. I'm asking
but
who's invested. I'm
the,
asking who are the individuals that you're really digging deep down into, because this type of project, how many units are going to be there? how many people, like I said, are they going to be drawing from these people? And one of the stipulations, because one thing a church is exempt from is a lot of laws that have to do with fair housing. They are exempt because their
Mm,
land is holy, it is theirs, it is
yeah.
not forested by the government. So
Hey,
they could make a stipulation that may not fall underneath a guise of what the Fair Housing Act is. You get what I'm saying?
hey,
I do.
I see what both of y'all are saying.
Yeah.
Um, but
The-
I appreciate that you see the good, Andrew. Like whoever, whatever pastor you're working with, that they're doing it. Like I might know who it is, I might not, but I have faith that they're in it for the people. Based on like what I've seen and what we've seen, it's not like
I'm
because
not looking at the negative side. I'm just telling you, as a man who is in the activist world, and I watch good things pop up, and then those good
yeah,
things turn bad very quickly because what ends up happening is greed seeps in. You don't know a man's worth until you see what happens to him when success is put into his place. Just because you own a
Mm-hmm.
business, just because you're this person in the world that people see on a daily basis, you don't know what's happening behind closed doors. And so what I'm saying is there is a line where sure this church could be doing that. I could go be open up a church myself tomorrow. I could go apply to be a to show that I'm a faith-based person, set up myself as a nonprofit church-based person, and go out there and start building and saying that I'm building whatever I'm building and doing whatever I'm doing. This is just the thing. I just want to make sure that when they put in these houses, that they're not making the stipulations that you have to be part of my faith in order to have a roof over my head. Because you know what? I'm a follower of Christ. I'm not a Christian. There's a big difference for me. So if I'm doing certain things a certain way and I'm following what Christ told me to do as a person, I'm not trying to influence you to do something against your will. I'm just trying to go ahead and provide you a safe space so you can find that in which you're looking for, right? The faith or whatever you're trying to build. That's where my concern comes in because I don't see it as a negative aspect. I just say I don't want to see it abused because now politicians, all of a sudden, how many politicians are Catholic? How many politicians have more money than we do? They can open up these businesses and start creating more slum based shit. And then we're all sitting here in a position where we're at a disadvantage again. And they're
mm,
tax exempt now. And so there's no money coming in, and we're paying all the fees and all the way. And we're in a worse position than we were before. There's more
well,
right.
churches in Vallejo, California than there are people
Mm-hmm.
almost.
I I know, but that's the point. That's the point. You just said it right there. You just said it right there. There are so many people in Vallejo that are in need, and there are more churches in Vallejo with property. So the state of California, the legislators said SB 4, Senate Bill 4, creates the opportunity to build on those churches, but they're tied to fair housing laws. And so, to be honest with you, the government can create laws, can create programs, but it's up to the people to regulate themselves and to follow them.
You know,
And that's
people ain't
always
never gonna do that. Like that's
no,
not a
no,
thing.
but that's why it's people like you who show up and are a part of these projects. That's why you use your voice to be a part of it. We can't just come and say this is what could happen. We use our knowledge, our education to insert ourselves in a way that we push it so that it doesn't happen. Because you're right, every ball could roll into the gutter, right?
Everyone,
But we all could follow behind that ball and help to push it away.
right?
And that's what we all have to do. But if we let it go, then nature will take its course. So, a lot of great points, a lot of great points, and a lot of fears. To be honest with you, you've touched on a lot of fears that I think the community has.
I
Um,
want to. I
you
want to
know,
remind you though. It's not a fear of mine. It's not so much a fear. It's more of a understanding of like the people who have money are ahead of us, right? Like we're in the race. We're trying to. We're back here, right? We're hanging out here, and they're way up here. You get what I'm saying? So we're trying to catch up to the people with the investments, with the money. Like the man who owns all that whole stuff you were describing, right? He goes and makes 1.2 million dollars. He can go out and say, "Hey, you guys are building this? Let me throw some money on it. But I need 30% return on my investment at minimum." So now the price is going to go up because you have to make your investors make money. Like this
Yeah.
is just how this works.
We
Well,
And
have 10
yeah,
so
but
minutes. We have
yeah,
10
we
minutes.
have 10 minutes, so
Andrew,
let's
what do
quit.
we do? What do
Yeah,
we
so
do?
let
What
me
should we get ready for?
and really quickly, let me just say that you're completely right, and that's why these programs are 52 pages, 62 pages, 118 pages long, because they address each and every one of those concerns. Developer fees are capped at 10%. You have to defer a certain amount. It's very, very involved. These programs, they have a lot of regulatory oversight. So yes, money is thrown around. Money is always thrown around. When you throw around big pools of money, dollars slip out. But at the end of the day, Antioch needs to get into that money ring. We need to get those dollars. So what do we do, Patty? That's a very good question. We support these developers. And let me ask you a question. If a pastor is just about a profit, why do I have a pastor that has a property that he's put on the market for $3.8 million that has this housing opportunity for the site? It's very well positioned, could hold at least 100 tiny homes on the site, all low income, with a child care center and a food bank on site. And he's begged the city of Antioch. He showed up at council meetings. He's reached out to every city council member. He's begged the city of Antioch to buy this building, to do this, to work with the developer to do this. He's gotten no responses except for two individuals, two out of town investors that have come in and have offered him over $3 million to buy the property, the whole property, and turn it into a private event center, a banquet hall. And he's turning down that offer because he believes the proper thing for this site is affordable housing. But he can't get a call back from city council.
So you know what we need to do? We need to go hit the neighborhoods and see if the neighborhood people will sign a petition and get these people to actually try to push
We need a
forward these
petition.
things. And we need to position ourselves to where it's like, listen, the community's asking for this. You know what
We
I'm
got to
saying?
get groups showing up at council meetings and saying in public comments, we want this. I
Yeah.
need 40, 50, 60 people showing up at every city council meeting saying this is going to be a lost opportunity.
Okay.
But you also need people who are going to apply pressure in such a way that's going to make them have to hear it. You know what I'm saying? I've organized stuff to where we shut down whole city council meetings if they don't want to talk or listen. Like I'm totally okay with being that rebellious person where I'm gonna stand up and say, "All right, cool. You don't want to talk about what we want to talk about. This meeting's over till you're ready to talk about what we want." How about that? Like on some real stuff. Like we can move this meeting to next month, and next month is going to be the same thing until you give us what we want. Like you
Well,
gotta
that's
have people who are ready to show up and say, "Listen, what's up? Hell or high water, I'm here. And if you don't give us what we want, we're gonna be back here on your head every single chance we get. Everything that's going on, like you're out to dinner with your family, I'm gonna protest you right at the dinner spot. That's me.
There's a
yeah,
lot.
Like,
There's a lot that we have. There's a lot of work that we got to do.
I'm saying we got to
yes.
apply pressure, and I think applying pressure will be what you're talking about, which is having this gentleman go up there, have the support of the community, 40, 50, 100, whoever we can pull. Right now, it might be 10, might be 20, but those voices need to be the loudest people in the room.
Yes.
Let's look at when is our next city council meeting, Antioch?
January 8th, I believe.
Oh, God. I'm not going to that one. That's an insurrection date. I'm not going.
January 9th. January 9th.
Whatever, that's close enough. 8,
Yeah.
9, 10.
Yeah.
Any of those days, you're going to be labeled a terrorist and you're in trouble.
Oh
Yeah.
wow,
Well,
that's right.
Tamisha requested it 2 meetings ago. She requested the council bring it forward. And as we know, the mayor has 90 days from when a request is made to bring it forward. So the pressure is on the mayor. Who this lies, on is the mayor. And I'll tell you right now, we could hear all these comments about cities don't buy buildings and cities don't buy properties and build housing, and that's not true. I want to tell you all, and I want to tell the community who's listening, that's not true. And if politicians or if city government officials are telling you that's true, that is not true. Santa Rosa, Roner Park, Salinas,
Vallejo.
Vallejo. Cities are buying properties and redeveloping them for economic uses, for housing, affordable market rate. Cities can do, I don't want to say cities can do whatever they want. That's not true at all. But cities can do what they want to do. They have the opportunity to buy these properties and to put them out for through RFPs for housing development. And what's frustrating is the city of Antioch right now is closing contract on the old PG&E building on West Second Street um, for $2 to $2.3 million, and nobody in the community has even heard about that. It got brought up in a closed session item where they all talk about it, and then nobody in the community knows about it. And we, for years, begged for money for home key. We begged for money for housing. We heard there was no money. And somebody somewhere decided, oh, let's buy this building and then in closed session buy it. And now they're in contract and they can just dedicate over $2 million. So, to their point, I don't want to push back and say you shouldn't do it. Go ahead and buy it. I've heard our city budgets are strong, and I'm sure our new department that was created could use that space for good. So I support that. But in the same fold, buy this old golfing games property for $3.8 million and build 100 homes and a food bank and the park and ride across the street and give our community the hope that they need.
Look,
So
what we need to do is take away the police department, shut it down, and put in resources in every one of those offices and give that to the people. That's what I think. Also,
I listen, I fully support and removing a lot of responsibilities from our police department. I fully support disarming a lot of our police department. I'll tell you that our police department, once again, there's all these misnomers, right? We hear what's in the social media and in the media, and then we hear, you know, what the council says. But when you go out and you talk to these cops, when you talk to these CSOs, and I'm talking about the ones that are not being investigated right now that we know of, it's scary, right? Because they're supposedly the ones that are not the bad, but then they talk just as bad, right? And so, you know, to your point, Patty, like you said in the past, where's the hope, right? Like where do we find, how do the police can't police themselves, the city can't police the police, the community can't police the police. So, what's left? I think.
That part is not true. Actually, in Vallejo, California, we have a group of brothers and sisters right now who there's a cop who just killed that kid, Sean Montessori, during COVID, who happens to be friends of a friend, family member, stuff like that, right? And so in the city of Vallejo, they just reinstated this police officer. They just went and spent private security on him. So they have somebody who tails him and gets paid 20K throughout the first 6 months of what's going on, just to go ahead and anytime he's on an incident, they're following this dude and making sure that there's accountability. They're Instagram living him. They're literally applying pressure. So there's ways for us to go ahead and police the police. Trust me, I'm in all kinds of, the police cannot stand me because I know my rights. I talk gangy shit to them, and I'm not the type of person who's gonna back down from them just because they have a gun. I'm not afraid of them. I never have been. I never will be. I need people to start looking at the fact that we outnumber all the people policing us. I'm the type of person, if I see the police harassing somebody, I don't even have to know them. I start recording them. I've had police straight up tell me, hey, give me your phone. Touch me, and I guarantee you, you will be unemployed. I guarantee you that you will not work here. Like, I'm not the type of person where if you see something wrong being conducted, you just start pulling your phone out and recording them on the spot. Period. No matter what you're doing. I'm live. Go ahead. The whole world can see what you're going to do to me. That you act different now. So, I mean, really, I pulled over at traffic stops where I saw somebody out. And I'm like, yo, he's like, why you pulled over? This is dangerous for me. Yeah, it was dangerous for him too. So I just want to make sure you treat him right. And Guess what?
Right.
I'm not doing anything illegal, am I? I just happen to pull over and see you doing something, and I want to make sure that they're being cool. So here, live, let's go. You know what I'm saying? You have to understand that people are going to have to start taking forth the initiative to push into these spaces and be unapologetic for whatever happens. But you do something to me, it's on live. Cool. I'll be rich. Go ahead. Your city might be a little broke for paying me, but I'm going to put it back into the city. What programs can I create? Hey, let's go buy this land and let's go ahead and build those houses you're talking about, since they wanted to pay me for it anyway. Like, go ahead, put yourself in the way. You never know what kind of lottery you're
There's
gonna
a
make.
big debt. I just know there's a huge debt owed to many community members in our city. Many mothers are grieving. Many family members are grieving. Many homes were torn up based on racial discrimination. Many rights were violated. Civil rights were violated. Like, it's really big. Obviously in every department, but here in Antioch especially, if they were to just give that back to the community, that would be one symbolic way for them to say, hey, look, we realize we fucked up. We're going to give this to you symbolically, and then for resources and people. But yeah,
Listen, they're trying to build a new police station in Vallejo. They had the police out here killing us and bending their badges.
oh my
Like this is
God.
some real shit. And then the problem
Yeah.
is when they do the investigations, they're using Sonoma County investigators to go ahead and investigate all the problems. Listen, black people make up 2.1% of Santa Rosa. Latino people make up 33.9%, and the rest are either Caucasian or other. So how are you going to have places auditing the police stations and the places that are primarily ran by people of Caucasian descent?
We
It
went
doesn't make any sense.
in Contra Costa County. We were trying to get the separation from the coroners from the sheriffs, and I don't
Yeah,
even.
but Sonoma County does a lot of the auditing, is what I'm saying. So you
Mhm.
have these white spaces going ahead and doing the auditing and finding no wrongdoing because they're greasing each other's palms. They're taking care of themselves. That's just how it works. So until we stand up and we start holding them accountable, and just like you see in Palestine, how everybody's videoing everything, so there can't be a discussion of whether something is wrong or indifferent. We need to start keeping an accurate log of what is happening at all times so they can't refute it. You can't lie to the camera. You can make a story up and you can let them go, but the public isn't going to let that go, right?
Hey, and that's how the civil rights started too. Once there was technology to document and record back in the day, that's when people became aware, and we need to keep
Cameras. As soon
awareness.
as they
Right,
started
right.
taking pictures and started seeing all that, like when Martin Luther King was like, "Yo, I'm gonna walk across that bridge," and he took the black people, they whooped their ass
They
going
document.
across that bridge. But when they
Yep.
brought white people with them, they're like, "We cannot televise the police beating up these white people because if we do that, it's gonna cause a problem in America."
Mm.
But why is it gonna cause a problem? It's gonna cause a problem because these white people go, "Wait, you're treating us like them?"
Mm.
Because we have a different opinion than y'all. Oh, there's more of us than there are of all of y'all. And then they'll absorb into our groups. That's how that usually works. So
Mhm.
that's what we need. We need people to start activating, start absorbing into the groups and not shaming themselves for being Caucasian, but actually saying, hey, look, these motherfuckers over there should feel shame and we should be in here helping in these spaces because these people need advancement. Listen, if somebody doesn't have something in my neighborhood, that means they're going to bunk me over the head to come get it because they need it. So why would I get to that point when I could help them before they have to go clunk me over my head and take my shit?
Mm.
It's very simple.
Yeah.
Create access for these people. Hey, I have a homeless man comes by my yard. I'm like, yo, you want to make a couple dollars? I got you. You know what I'm saying? I'll give you gainful employment. I know a dude down the street hiring somebody. You want some help? Come here, wash up, shower, do your thing. We need to start being a community again. Problem is, everybody's selfish. There's not everybody, a large portion of our population is selfish and think you're lazy if you are at that spectrum where you're not having enough to get what you need. And the
Mm.
reality is those people aren't shamed because they didn't go to college or they're not doing shit. There's not enough jobs that pay enough to support the amount of rent that shit costs. You got to work 3 jobs just to be able to do regular shit.
Mhm. And then there's folks suffering from mental health, and
Drugs,
not
like
drugs. Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
saying, drugs, mental health.
yeah. Once upon a time, we did have, the mental health hospitals, and it was all shut down, and that released hundreds of thousands of folks into the communities.
There are other solutions, though.
There
It's
are.
community. And what I want to say is, for everybody, just look up Community First Village in Austin, Texas. Just go on YouTube and watch Community First Village in Austin, Texas. They'll give you a 12-minute tour of this community, and you'll see that what we need is just that micro communities throughout that have that support. Check out Community First Village.
I will check it out.
Ooh, Nicole Gardner's on the line. Community. Nicole
Girl,
Gardner.
can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we
Yes.
can hear you.
Tell us about
Oh
your
my-
outreach.
Girl, it took me forever just to get on here. I was on my phone. It was like, no, you can't get on. Then I went on my laptop. It was like, I was like, what is going on? But who is this guy? What is your name?
My name
Virgo.
is my
Virgo.
name.
Oh
It's
my
Virgo, like
God.
Van Gogh.
That's right.
You literally made me. I said I got to get on here and talk to him. I know you guys are ending this. I know you guys are ending it, but I would love to have deeper conversations with you, because literally everything you said, and I kind of hopped on when you guys were talking about the churches and stuff. Everything you said, I felt, and I totally agree. And we just got to do some due diligence when it comes to having different organizations. I think even Andrew would agree. Different organizations taking on these tasks of building building shelter and things like that, because I know, Andrew, we've talked in the past about just who's the right organization to do it and who's not. And I totally agree with you, Virgo, that, some of these churches, I mean, we even had a debate not too long ago about churches not wanting to have, or wanting to ban folks for wanting to ban unhoused folks for even being in their areas. And we had a situation about that. So I just felt everything that you said, and I just wanted to hop on. Outreach was great. We served a lot of people tonight. We usually go out on Wednesdays, but we did end up going out tonight because it was raining yesterday. So we got folks a lot of donations and things like that. But great conversation, you guys. I tuned in probably about 20-30 minutes ago. And like I said, Virgo, I was like, I wasn't gonna tune in, but I was like, hey, he is speaking my language.
You can
So
Google me.
I just had to hop. I was like trying to do everything I could. Why is my phone not working? Why is this not working? I had to hop on my laptop. But thank
Well,
you
Miss
so
Nicole,
much
thank
for
you for
your
coming on.
perspective. It really spoke volumes to me, and I totally agree with just about everything you said.
Well, I appreciate that. It's a lot of the work that I've been putting forth in the community and surrounding communities, and that same type of energy I've had pretty much for the last 4 or 5 years. Um, I'm a Black activist, so I'm half Black, half white. I literally kind of walk in a bridge in the community where I'm trying to bring people from every walk of life together versus trying to, just stick to my Black nationalist roots, which is, Black first, let me help my people do all this. Like, that attitude is great and wonderful in the Malcolm X era. But right now, what I'm trying to do is say, hey, look, I come from the most diverse community in the entire country, which is Vallejo, California. And we manage as a people to pretty much make things work and scrap our resources together just to make our city, not fall apart with the 3 police officers we have. So, we need as a group of people, like I said, to figure out how to be these bridges. All my children are biracial. I'm biracial. Like, to me, there's only 2 types of people on this planet. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm not very good with the other types of people. The other types of people are women. Like, y'all are complex.
Oh, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. I think I'm gonna get off of here.
No. I didn't mean it in a bad way. I'm just saying there's 2 types of people in conflict usually. You know what I'm saying? When we're talking about color, we're talking about all these other things.
Right.
Well, I just try to lighten the mood a little bit with that joke. You didn't like it. That wasn't that funny.
No.
I promise.
That was,
but
I got
what I'm
you.
saying is there's only 2 types of people. There's men and women, right? And so we're trying to bridge not only the gap between those 2 groups, but then they're trying to divide us even secularly into like, oh, you're Indian, you're this, you're that, you're third. All of that
Right.
doesn't matter. Like, how do we work as a unit, as a group of people, where we have our women elevated, our men elevated, people working in uniform with one another and not divisive? And so that's where we're lacking in a lot of spaces. Because look, I'm good at certain things. There's going to be things that you're better at, or Patty's better at, or Andrew's better at, or Carlos there is better at. And as men, there's things that we're going to be better at. And I'm not talking about physical things, maybe navigating hot attitudes between a man when a man gets hot and he starts talking a certain way. Like, I have to go ahead and bridge that gap and speak to him a certain way, right? In order for him to understand. And unfortunately, there's a lot of men who operate that way. So until we get men and women in uniform, right? Like, hey, I
Mm-hmm.
compliment you, you compliment me, let's compliment the circumstance. This is
And
where the
each other.
division comes in. There's two types of people, men and women on this planet. All that other shit, that's where they got us fucked up. And we really need to start just moving in a way where it's like, hey, you're good at doing research. I'm good at going out there and getting in your face and telling you, read the fucking research. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, I'm the dude saying, look, I've read the research myself. She did the research. Now do the research yourself. Don't just take my word for it. Like the Reading Rainbow dude, he would always tell you to read the book, right? He didn't say, hey, I read this book. It's a good book.
Lamar.
Yeah, it'd be like, yo, read the book yourself. Don't take my word for it. Just because I told you I pulled records and the records say this, if you didn't read them, when you come to make a public comment, you sound like a dummy. And I don't need you up there talking if you don't know what the fuck you're talking about.
Right.
Just to be like, oh, I'm doing something activist based. Who cares if you're activist based and you don't know what you're talking about?
Right. Absolutely. I
Mm-hmm.
totally agree with
I,
you.
I bought look, I bought a speaker to go protest, right? And I had the protesters mad at me. They're like, you're disrupting our protest. I said, you brought signs, you dummies. Okay? I brought a speaker. Look, can't nobody read your sign
Right.
unless they walk by, but they can hear me for sure inside.
For blocks upon blocks, right?
Yeah, look, I got two big speakers.
Nice. Nice.
1,800
Right.
watts a piece. You can hear me like I'm an amphitheater.
Man, he reminds me of Frank too.
Right.
Right. We have
Yeah. A
our
lot of
speaker.
it.
Frank is our speaker dude.
Yeah.
That's me.
He's our speaker guy. But you guys, I know you guys were gonna cut out at 9, and I don't want to take too much of your time. It took me so long to get on. I'm like frustrated. Get in there, my dog's in the background. Cut it out.
No, don't go, don't go.
Eating on plastic and
before
all
we
the
do,
shit.
our community that doesn't know, we have advocates out here advocating for our folks on the streets. It's cold outside, it's raining outside, and then you have community leaders like Nicole Gardner out there checking on these on our folks. So thank you, Nicole, for being out there. And when I think of them, my peace of mind is like, okay, I know Nicole, she's out there. So how are they doing? How are our folks that you were able to reach out to today? And
One thing I must say about you, Patty, I love you to death.
I love
And
you too.
I think it was a few weeks back where you actually sent me, when it first started raining, you sent me a message, and I was in the middle of something. I'm so bad at getting back to folks. I know it. I'm sorry.
Me too.
But you literally sent me a message like, how are our friends on the streets? Like, it just had started raining that day. And you were like, how are our friends on the streets? Like, you were so like worried, and I never got back to you, but a lot of them are doing okay. We really had a great, last week we went out, we celebrated some birthdays, which we are going to do every month at the end of the month. So Nino off. Sorry about that. Celebrated some birthdays, which we're going to do the end of month every month, celebrate birthdays and do things like that. We just want to make things normal for folks. And it really hasn't been as cold as it was last year. But we've had some cold days. So, no, the city has not provided any type of shelter or anything like that, for the unhoused. But they're still hanging in there. They're strong. They're hopeful. And just like I said, when we go out there, and we serve people and we just give them hope. We just want them to have hope and love and hugs and birthdays and celebrations and all that stuff, because they go through so much when we're not there. When we are not there, they are cold. You know, when we're not there, they are hungry. You know, even though we do, and one thing I must say and commend Antioch, it was the thing on Rant and Raves Antioch today, where somebody was like, you know, is Antioch even worse than? I'm like, Antioch is a beautiful place.
I loved your comment. I saw that.
Did you see that? We do have crime, but what city doesn't? I'm like, it's funny to me that, and then somebody brought up like boomers, you know, which are, and I have to be honest, which are majority of Caucasian folks that were born 50 years, 60 years, 70 years ago, who are and I don't know if y'all did that segment because I didn't get into that, but that were born that many years ago, and of course they are like, oh, okay, crime's gotten up. They just looking at, now we are a diverse city, and they're just used to their old little they little world. It wasn't that diverse, and there wasn't a lot going on. So, you know, there's sundown back here in Antioch years ago, and they're used to their sundown town, and so therefore they just think, oh my God, crime. Have you been to Oakland? Have you been to North Richmond? Have you been to this place? I was born in North Richmond, okay? Like,
have they been to the Crest in Vallejo?
Thank you. My grandma lived in a Crest. Like, come on. Like, I'm just like, are y'all not knowing? Y'all, it's just laughable to me. It really is. I'm not saying we don't have crime, but shit, I mean, come on, don't act like it. Y'all just don't know what y'all don't know.
I love it.
And Carlos, again, I don't want to go over your time, but again,
no, we good.
But again,
music's playing. We're gonna have to cut it, y'all.
All right, guys.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks for the invite, Miss Patty.
Miss Patty.
Nice to meet you, Andrew.
Nicole Gardner and Mr. Virgo. I just got one question. I gotta end this with a laugh. What was the name of your party bus again?
The Twerkulator.
The what?
The Twerkulator.
I gotta. Hey.
Wait, Twerkulator?
The Twerkulator. Look us up. We're on Vice. The Twerkulator. Check us out on Vice TV.
I thought it was twerk. It was twerk.
And for everybody that's tuned in still, if we're gonna bring them back, I gotta hear the story of that.
Oh yeah.
There's a lot of stories. I promise you. We'll come back. And look, Patty will get you linked up with me, and we'll talk.
For sure,
and I'll
man.
even bring the owner. I'll bring my best friend, who's the owner, and we'll have a conversation with him. How about that?
You know how hard. You know how hard it was to go all this time. When you said the name, I was already like, "Oh my God, I gotta." But then we was getting deep with the housing, so. But you know, so I was like, "Nah, I'll save it for later."
We gotta bring the housing back too, though.
Yep, for sure.
Well, look, let's start crowdsourcing. Let's figure out how to start crowdsourcing. Let's start buying up some property. Let's talk about that and how we can start helping our community that way. Because ultimately, I think that if we can get a bunch of people collectively together and start buying up houses and buying up property, we can become our own organization. Let's put our pennies together and figure out how we use buying power to do this. Listen, there's enough people in this room right now. We could go buy one house.
That's right.
Absolutely. Got you, brother.
All right, guys. I'll catch you next time, Miss Patty. I'll link up and I'll get some contact info.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Carlos, for hosting.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody out there. Make sure you like, subscribe, and tune in next Thursday, 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And I'm Carlos, Miss Patty, and the rest of the crew here, and we're out.
Hey, and share.
Share. That's right.
All right.
Peace out, everybody.
Love y'all.
Later.